Good morning, everyone out there. This is Brother Gigi Lucero broadcasting from Zamboanga City. Right now, I am co hosting with Brother Jojo Gonzalez on the program One Vote, Our Hope Movement. This is episode 19, season 2 of One Vote, which is um, uh, an organization that is focused on, especially this year, on the barangay elections. So, may I start with this just a review of why I am in Zamboanga City, which did mention during the first broadcast where I joined some time back. No, that was last week. So, the rationale why I am in Zamboanga City before I move on to the main purpose of our uh, session today on barangay elections. First, why I am in Zamboanga City. I left Manila in 2017 when I retired from Richter Alternative Medical Center um, as its marketing manager. Now, since 2018, I have relocated here in Zamboanga City. And among the tasks that I focused on was the uh, pursuing the advocacy of our president at the time, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, which can be summarized in five words or five letters. Uh, D would be for drugs. Uh, C will be for corruption. I would be for insurrection. P for poverty, and C for crime. So those were his five big tasks facing his administration at the time. So in like manner, I would start here in Zamboanga, focus on those five advocacies. For drugs, of course, would be um, CCL. We formed CCL in April of 2018, where we had our first speaker who talked about the Philippine jury system, which is being under proposal. Why for D, it is the CCL, Capital Christian Leadership chapter, founding of the chapter here in Zamboanga. And then later on, I would be involved in BADAC. This was in 2018, which means the BADAC stands for um, Barangay Anti-Drug Abuse Council. Now, this is the first one. The second one would be C, corruption, because of corruption in government and in all fields and all way of life here in the Philippines. We are now introducing, or we started introducing from way back, the setting up of the new Philippine jury system. Now, and then for I, that would be insurrection, we would um, organize at the time I was the committee chairman of Interfaith Initiative under the Global Peace Foundation. So this was the main thrust for insurrection, to bring together the people um, using the principles of Global Peace Foundation. And then for P, we were anticipating the coming in of CBMC, which is an organization of businessmen, in order to address the issue of poverty. But that did not come into reality because at the time we were not, they were not prepared to come in. So, and then the fifth one would be C, that would be crime. I assumed the role of National Executive Director of CCW, or Citizens Crime Watch Special Task Force Foundation Federation. So in all those five uh, letters, DCIPC, that was our response at the time. So this was 2018. Now, if I can just recall, or for those who would remember, back in 2016 was when I really got involved with CCL, advocating for reform, no, advocating or supporting the advocacy of Digong, our president at the time. We anchored our talk, which uh, uh, which was about the presence of drugs in practically all the barangays in the Philippines. Assuming there are 42,000 barangays in the Philippines, we also at the time we had 77,000 ministers. We said that we had a failure. CCL had a failure in leading this advocacy, or this anti-drugs, because of the presence of drugs in practically all barangays at the time. So what we had no impact in the marketplace. So again, we and then later on I would give an example for the here in Zamboanga, where a pastor, a person of a minister, can be able to get into a local government even in consultancy basis. So I would become a member of the Barangay Anti-Drug Abuse Council of Tetuan, Zamboanga City, where I am based. So the second one would be about um, um, corruption. And he said that we will be pushing for the proposal to set up a new judiciary system, which is a Philippine jury system, which is not in place here in the Philippines, while all the other countries, or most countries that are developed or are able to understand the situation on corruption, would go for the setting up of this um, system. And then for that would be for, again, the setting up of the Global Peace Foundation here in Zamboanga. So back in 2016, we said the only way to establish ourselves would be, or to be impactful in the marketplace, is to get involved. So we formed this group, which was approved by the board at the time of CCLGI, CCL Growth Initiative, where we were saying we were going to increase or expand the influence of CCL in all 17 regions. And so we were able to do so until in four regions, like Baguio, Quezon City, which is NCR, and then we had also Pasay City, part of NCR, and then we have Calabarzon under the leadership of Brother Rudy Corgado, and then in Zamboanga City under yours truly. So we were able to do that during the period. Now, we said that we are going to have to reach out to the other sectors of society. So we started signing up or going into contract, no, a memorandum of agreement, a memorandum of understanding with 16 organizations in 2016, and we were able to invite them to the 2017 induction ceremonies in Club Filipino. I will be mentioning them in the next session to identify who were they. And then in 2018, we already reached more organizations from 16 to we went to 26, I think, 26. And then in Zamboanga, we were able to sign up with 10 organizations here. So all in all, 48 organizations. But that did not come into fruition because that came, they did not roll. No? It did not, um, I might say, did not gain momentum because of um, some logistical problems, and of course, when the coming in of COVID-19 in 2019, 2020. So anyway, I left CCL physically in 2019 when I assumed the chairmanship of the organization towards the end of the year. This was assuming the position of chairman um, in lieu of the resignation of Bishop Juan Pring, who resigned in June after his uh, failed election attempt in 2019. So for the balance of the year, I was the chairman of CCL based in Quezon City. So again, we said that we needed to do that. That's why I'm here. That's why when I resigned from Richter Alternative in 2017, on the first day of 2018, andito na, I was already in here in Zamboanga. Okay. Um, okay. Now we go to the formal part of the program, which is the second. By the way, the first set or the first part of my broadcast was about why I am in Zamboanga City. And since I relocated in 2018, and I said that that's what we have been doing in 2018. And then from 2019, when I came back again from Manila after finishing my uh, uh, chairmanship in with CCL, came the time when COVID-19 came about. No, this was in March. So, in response to the proclamation of the president, Proclamation 929, declaring the Philippines under state of calamity because of COVID-19, we responded 10 days later, 2016, 20 March 26, 2020, with As I See It, weekly online commentary. So from then on, March 26, every week, except during the time when I got sick back in 2021, November, October, we were always producing weekly commentaries on, especially on COVID-19. And at the time, we were waiting for the consideration of alternative approach, which is natural healing, in addressing COVID-19, which has now reached almost 227 countries in the world. Now, at the time, it was still very raw. The first time, in fact, there were only two fatalities at the time, but the government already proclaimed the whole Philippines the state of um, calamity because of COVID-19. So that's what we were doing the first phase, and then towards the end of or the early part of 2020, we wanted to get involved in the seniors considering the plight of the senior citizens, whom we believed at the time was not very well cared for by the government. So we wanted to start there, and we wanted to uh, invite um, senior citizens to be uh, to be enrolled in our program on naturopathy. Because at the time, in March 5, I was already accredited as a naturopathic practitioner, accredited by DOH PTAC. PTAC standing for Philippine Institute of Traditional and Alternative Healthcare. So this was our response that they have to consider, or the government had to consider, or must consider alternative approach, because we said at the time there's an abundance of coconuts in the Philippines, and we have VCO, no VCO, to address that in order to strengthen the immune system. So having said that, we were saying that we were pushing through, and then when we learned, we had a problem there, because the seniors were more concerned about their vaccination, because at the time March of 2021 was when the vaccination was coming in, no? So everybody was concerned there. Everybody was not going out. So we said let's just stall, and now go into the involving ourselves in national issues. That's where in April 6, 2021 was when we established the Pambansang Talakayan News to discuss national issues like the West Philippine Sea, okay, COVID-19 and everything, crime and all that, and all this related to of national concern. So since then, we have been doing that, and come March will be our third anniversary. So every year, if there are 52 weeks, we've always been there producing this weekly online commentary. So maybe practically 150 issues already to date. So given that we are now still in Zamboanga City, and now embarking into giving a more broadcast, giving more uh, uh, plans. We have more plans to expand and nationalize the Pambansang Talakayan into a newspaper. So, having said that, may I start with the formal presentation for today, which will be in four parts. The first one would be general information about the Philippines, of course, to give just an overview of how many provinces we have and all that, the population and the barangays. And then the second part would be about barangay SK elections, some background there, and then of course information about Zamboanga, Region 9. Okay, and then the fourth one would be the proposed House Bill 7123, authored by Representative Rufus Rodriguez of Cagayan de Oro, 2nd District, proposing for the extension of term limit of barangay officials, both barangay and SK, from 3 to 5 years with 3 consecutive terms. And then the fourth, the last part would be some discussion points on the maybe in response to the presentation of our first speaker last week, who was advocating for bottom-up uh, approach in the barangay development plans, in planning. Okay, so let me start with the first part, and it's already 10:15 by my watch here. The Philippines has a population of 113.9 million. Okay, that's the population as of 2021. And we have 7,000. 7,640 islands. Okay, 7,640 islands. So where we are an archipelagic um, country. Now, we have 17 regions, 17 regions, 6 in Luzon, 3 in Visayas, and then 6 in Mindanao. So again, 8 in Luzon, 3 in Visayas, and then 6 in Mindanao for a total of 17 regions. Now, what is important to know at this time, because we're moving into the barangay elections, that we have 42,047 barangays. Okay, 42,047 barangays. Now we have 81 provinces, 148 cities, and 1,489 municipalities and towns. So that is gives us an idea of how the Philippines is uh, can be defined. Okay, we have this information that the total count of voters in the Philippines during the May 2022 elections was 65,745,529 voters. Those who participated in the elections. That's where we determined that those are the number of voters and the actual votes that President Bongbong Marcos got was about 31 million. And then Robredo, the vice president at the time, got about 16 million. And then the third the third uh, placer there would be Manny Pacquiao with about 3.6 million. And then you have Isco with over a million. And then Senator Ping Lacson, uh, a million or less than a million. And then down the road. So those were the highlights of 2022 elections. And also, we noted that Sara Duterte, the vice president elect, got 32 million more, 1 million votes more than PBM. Okay. So I'd like to make some comments here because they're saying that 65 million voters voted in May 22 elections. And our latest information coming out is that COMELEC has been able to produce or print only 45.3 million ballots. So that's a very, very dangerous, a very critical information. And lately we are witnessing COMELEC pushing for automation, which was a surprise in the Senate. I was listening to a review of the session in the Senate, and they were expressing surprise why all of a sudden COMELEC is now pushing for automation. Maybe because there's going to be a shortage of printed ballots, and automation would be the easy way out. In fact, they are even insisting that maybe part of the money of for COMELEC would be to buy um, more or more machines in order to achieve the needed number, because we needed, I think, 125,000 machines while we only have 98,000 in operation. So that is this is a very critical decision point for the government, because we're caught between having the elections, which is now set for October 30, 2023, after being postponed last year, which was supposed to be on December 5. And now we are facing this situation where Comelec is now advocating for automation and even suggesting that to go full automation by buying more machines in order to fully automate the election process. So that is one issue that one vote must have to consider, or must be aware of in advancing this one vote, our hope movement. Because we know, as Pastor Jojo would always mention, we have only one vote. As a citizen, we have only one vote, where we pin our hopes, where we pin our hopes for the betterment of society and the Philippines. So, okay, now we move to the third point, which is about Zamboanga, where I am based. Zamboanga Peninsula is region 9, okay? Which is region 9. It used to be called Western Mindanao. It's now Zamboanga Peninsula, region 9. And we have three provinces: Zamboanga del Norte, Zamboanga del Sur, and Zamboanga Sibugay. Okay? Those are the three provincial uh, territories that we have. We have also um, a population of 3.8 million, 3.8 million people in Zamboanga Peninsula. We have five cities: Dipolog being the capital, Dipolog City being the capital of Zamboanga del Norte, and there's another city there, Dapitan. Those who are familiar with Rizal, where he was exiled before he was brought to Manila in the late 19th, 20th century, 19th century. And then Pagadian City, that would be the third city, which is the capital of Zamboanga del Sur. And then we have Zamboanga City, which has no province, although politically it is being aligned with Zamboanga del Sur. But politically, Zamboanga City is a standalone. It is a chartered, more or less a chartered city, where it has 98 barangays and with two district or representatives. While Zamboanga Sibugay has the capital. The capital is Ipil, which is not yet a city. Now, also one thing peculiar about Zamboanga Peninsula is the inclusion of Isabela City, which is not part of the mainland, but it is based in Basilan, which is an island offshore. It is Isabela City is part of Zamboanga Peninsula, maybe because they did not participate in the BARMM, or predominant. They would go for to keep. No, I think there was maybe a referendum sometime back, and they would choose to be with. They would not choose to be with BARM. Okay, so that in a way is what I can say about Zamboanga Peninsula. We have 1,904 barangays, 67 towns with eight congressmen, eight districts. Now we go to the fourth one. Discussion point is the House Bill 7123, authored by the Cagayan de Oro City District 2 Representative Rufus Rodriguez. Okay, he is proposing to extend the term of office of barangay officials to include SK from 3 years to 5 years with consecutive term extensions. So a a candidate or an official in barangay, where in the current situation you can go 9 years, in his proposal now it is going to be 15 years. He has given a very lengthy uh, re, rationale on why this is needed, because it was going to address a lot of issues that we can handle in a certain time, in order to give it more time. Although I have the details here. Okay, so the last point for discussion would be in response to our presenter last week, where he was advocating for um, bottom-up planning for the barangays. He was mentioning that we should be involved now before the election time, so that the people will be able to effectively participate in developing the plans for the barangay, not 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 after, when elections are already settled, but before that we should be able to educate and orient the people, especially the voters, on how they would like to have their uh, territories or their barangays developed. No? What issues, what projects they have in mind, and that would be called uh, the mass line, where people are now able to present their um, plans or their ideas, and it's going to be summarized and presented in participation during the participation of the planning. So that's the bottom up. Now, my our response there is this: the direction that, if I may base it from dialectical materialism, which I have studied for a while, is about um, one one into two, which is the progressive. They say this is the progressive direction, as against two in one. Okay, two into one. Let me just cite that as an example. Like for example, in a corporation, you have the capitalists and you have the workers. So that's the two components. You have the landlords and the tenants. Okay, you have the king and then the slaves, landlord, feudal lords and the slaves. So these are two different uh, sectors in a society. We can go lo- uh, longer than that by saying that there are always two parts. Now, what progressives are saying is you can divide one into two, irreconcilable. The interests of the poor and the rich are irreconcilable, which is why the progressives are in under. They go through, or they consider the masses as the the one that will be that will compose the second part. No, you have the rich and the poor. Now and then you have the uh, combining two into one. In other words, like for example, in a corporation, the owners would always want to be united with the laborers, with the workers. That is two into one. I don't know if I'm making any sense here. One into two, two into one, which is what I think BBM President Bongbong Marcos is trying to advocate: unity. We should be coming together, not going against. So that is uh, in response to Andy um, presentation last week. Masses ito. Masses will develop the plans, and then the powers that be will just have to follow. Like the mayor will only preside, not even dictate. But we're saying that since the Marcos administration is up there, and will be around from 23 until 28. We have to align ourselves with the plans, which is what, an 8 or 10 point agenda, which is already cast in stone. No? That's already uh, a uh, plan of action, which is going to happen and funded in during the period 20 to 28, 23 to 28, so 5 year period. So we have to align ourselves with that. We cannot go against them, against the plans, because once you start raising up issues like that, issues of relevance and all that, but since you don't have the funding and you're not even united, remember there are 42,000 barangays. 42,000 barangays all over the Philippines. How can you get them united? No? So we have to really work within. So I would give myself an example. Like, even though I do not, I have my own ideas about progress and development, I would want to be involved. I would like to get into the system in order to influence what they have there. Influence while I'm with my presence there, which is why I joined BADAC, which is the Barangay Anti Drug Abuse Council, representing the uh, religious sector, in order to participate effectively in uh, planning and execution of the plans. Unlike the position where you have to start from outside and try to get in, you have to get in. No, we got to get in order to participate effectively. So again, the other item that I would like to discuss is about one step back, 2 steps forward, as against 2 steps forward and 1 step backward. So we would not be, we would be careless if we go 2 steps ahead, and then when we see a snag, we see a problem, we go back a step. Okay, while the proper way or the correct way would be to step, so you step back, review what what where you are, and then you move 2 steps forward. Uh, this would be better illustrated, I think, if we have the in a lecture forum where I can really illustrate, now, give an example of what it means to take a step back and then you move 2 steps forward, as against you go 2 steps forward, and then when you start sitting meeting the uh, having problems, you go a step back. So that is a no. And then the third point of discussion would be the idea of ISDA or IDAS. Now, this may be applicable in everyday life. When you have an idea, when you have an idea, it is recommended that you do not decide right away. Others would go, you know, go ahead and do it. IDAS, like, you have the idea, you decide, you act, and then before you study. The proper way or the correct or professional way would be to do ISDA. You have an idea, you study, then decide, then you do action. Okay? So with that, I'm giving those 3 samples of how to view or how to consider our plans, especially for one vote movement. We have 42,000 barangays ahead of us or present there, which need to be reached. And this is a good forum somehow. One Vote, Our Hope movement program, in order to bring in ideas where we can study together and before making decisions and then doing some actions. Uh, we agree to some degree that we need to really learn from the masses. We have to listen to them, uh, step back, and then go back to them with very good ideas. That is what we call mass line, the mass line, which Digong, PRRD, would practice in his long term of public service. He would say on the mass line, he would always go back to drugs, he would always go back to poverty, he will always as the needs of the time, because that's what the market needs. That's what the masses want to hear and that they're more concerned about. So it is from the masses, then he comes back with his solutions to the masses. That's what you call the mass line. Now, that is also what we want to do in a way by getting ourselves involved in uh, public service in order to influence what we can consider, what we can propagate and promote for the good of society. So, this is what I have prepared for today, and I think we still have more time to discuss. And I would welcome anyone out there who would like to exchange or would like to share their thoughts, and we can have some discussion on steps. What are the good steps forward? So, with that, I'd like to pause for a while and give it back to our director for any further direction. Okay, I'm advised to look at the camera from time to time. Okay, that's correct. That's I think that's a needed observation. I hope Brother Jojo is out there. I know he's a very um, busy business executive. He has other concerns, and he is um, generous enough to include me in this service, in this program on One Vote, Our Hope movement. We go back a long way. I joined CCL way back in 2005, and since then, I've always been trying to attend every session as much as possible when I'm in Manila. And I find it very encouraging and very enlightening, especially during the time when Attorney Dave Aguila would now come into the floor and give his words of wisdom. I miss the guy. He's past 90 years old, and I would always remember him as a person of longevity. I call him the living legend. And I have also made good friends there, like attorney Jess Paredes, who is now the president of Full Gospel Businessman's Fellowship, based in uh, the Quezon Circle, where I have been invited to be a sharer next month in March, but I cannot be there physically because I am based here in Zamboanga, and logistical situation, logistical concerns would always come in the way. It's Zamboanga City is so far down south, and if I may share my thoughts, I would consider myself already in a forward position. I have liberated myself from the clutches of Manila and try to be already involved in immersing with the people and trying to get myself going, especially with my advocacy on developing or inviting, training, and deploying persons who would like to serve in foreign posts. Because we know there is a command by our Lord Jesus Christ to go and make disciples of all nations. And there are, at the time when I was making the plans, we had about 197 uh, countries. But since the coming in of COVID-19 and maybe more organizations or more territories have been declared as part of the information, we have now 227 uh, territories or countries and territories that need to be reached out. There are 8 billion people now in this earth, and we know that uh, Christianity would be a third of that, maybe 1.5 million, 5 billion, and we know that China is 1.4 billion, and India will now this year surpass China as the most populous country, and then a demonstration of this is that they are now ordering 470 planes. Would you imagine the 470 planes to be included in the fleet of air air assets of India in the next few years? While the the concern, maybe I would propose to our group that we discuss about population next time, because that is a national concern. We should also talk about climate change, and maybe one thing that is very critical and very controversial is about the position of the Pope declaring um, homosexuality as a sin but not a crime. He made this statement last week, I think, when he came back from Africa, when he was uh, ministering there and advocating for peace. And he came back with Presbyterian leaders and those especially in UK, and they are in agreement that anti-gay laws are unjust because uh, everyone, if I may say so, everyone is a child of God, or children of God. And I believe in the principles of Global Peace Foundation that all of us are, we are all a family under God, one family under God. We may have different colors, different creeds, and all that, but we are one family under God. With that, I'd like to also include that as my part of my talk, and also for new the proposal for the new jury system. Just 2 days ago, or maybe within a week, 3 days ago, the Congress has agreed in they had a consensus that charter change will have to be put into action, especially through constitutional convention. Charter change. Although PPM, Bongbong Marcos is kind of uh, not supportive or not cooperative because he would like to focus on economics, on the economic recovery of the Philippines. And also, we may also talk about whether ICC, the International Criminal Court, should be allowed to continue investigating about the drug war of President Duterte. And in fact, the former president, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, is spearheading the uh, defense, not well, defending PRRD, Roa Duterte, from being investigated because, according to Remulla, our Secretary of Justice, saying that we have a good, in fact, also the BBM is saying we have a good judiciary, good justice system, and already uh, pursuing the investigation of the drug uh, cases. And one other issue would be about the West Philippine Sea, where we are witnessing some reports that a laser beam was, you know, uh, uh, directed towards a ship, P, uh, Philippine Coast Guard ship, and temporarily blinding them, which is a cause for alarm. Another issue, of course, would be the expansion of U.S. military bases in the Philippines, and it is reported that there will be four military bases, or maybe the expansion of existing military bases, especially in Cagayan de Oro. Those are one of the names mentioned, now places mentioned, Lumbia Airport, and then Palawan, and then um, Basa Air Base in Pampanga, and Port Magsaysay in Nueva Ecija. In fact, if I may recall, it is already well known that the U.S. had military installations in 26 or 28 locations in the Philippines. Now that they have been driven out in 1991 by the Senate, which led to the closure of um, Clark and Subic. But shortly thereafter, maybe a few years later, in '99, this came about. The VFA, Forces Agreement, Visiting Forces Agreement, which in effect, or in other words, making the presence of the U.S. Uh, uh, making the presence of the U.S. Establishing the presence of the U.S. in the Philippines, and then we have the uh, closure of many indications of. So that so with that, I'd like to close um, with this second participation, episode 18 and 19. Um, I kind of feel very a little rusty yet here, although I have some experience in broadcasting. But here, right now, I'd like to uh, say thank you for your patience. Thank you for listening in to some views that I have ventilated on. And we pray that this will lead to more discussions and lead to more participation from all sectors. And we are willing to engage in debate. We can engage in open discussion in order to promote one vote, our hope movement uh, through social media and through all forms of communication. With that, I'd like to thank Brother Jojo and Brother Rudy for this opportunity to be a part of One Vote, Our Hope movement. With that, I'd like to say thank you. Hasta la vista. Vaya con Dios from Zamboanga.